The year is 1212. In the heart of the Iberian Peninsula, beneath a merciless July sun, two worlds stand poised to collide. On one side, the combined might of Christian Europe, kings, knights, and crusaders who have traveled from distant lands, united by faith and ambition. On the other, the formidable armies of the Almohad Caliphate warriors of the desert, who have carved an empire stretching from the Atlas Mountains to the Sierra Morena defenders of a civilization that has flourished in Al-Andalus for 5 centuries. This is not merely a battle. This is a clash of empires, a collision of faiths, a moment that will echo through the centuries and reshape the destiny of Spain forever. The Battle of Las Navas de Tolosa will become a legend, sung by troubadours, chronicled by monks, remembered by generations as the day when the tide of history turned irrevocably. To understand this pivotal moment, we must journey backward through time, across deserts and mountain ranges, into the hearts of kingdoms and the minds of rulers. We must witness the rise of empires, the fall of cities, and the dreams of men who believed they were instruments of divine will. This is the story of how two civilizations, both brilliant and brutal, both sophisticated and savage, came to meet on a dusty plateau in the mountains of Andalusia, where the future of an entire peninsula would be decided by sword and blood. In the year 711, a Berber general named Tariq ibn Ziyad crossed the narrow strait that would bear his name, Gibraltar, the mountain of Tariq, and stepped onto European soil. Within 7 years, the Umayyad armies had conquered nearly the entire Iberian Peninsula, toppling the Visigothic kingdom and establishing a new order that would transform the land they called Al-Andalus. For centuries, this would be one of the most advanced civilizations in medieval Europe, a place where Muslim, Christian, and Jewish scholars worked side by side, where mathematics and astronomy flourished, where irrigation transformed barren lands into gardens, and where the great cities of Córdoba, Seville, and Toledo rivaled anything in Constantinople or Baghdad. By the 11th century, the golden age of Al-Andalus began to fracture. The great Umayyad Caliphate of Córdoba collapsed into civil war in 1031, splintering into dozens of small kingdoms called taifas. These petty rulers, more interested in poetry and pleasure than military power, became vulnerable to the growing Christian kingdoms in the north. From their mountain strongholds in Asturias, Leon, Castile, Navarre, and Aragon, Christian kings had been slowly pushing southward for generations, reconquering lands their ancestors had lost. The Reconquista, the Reconquest, became the defining mission of Christian Iberia, a holy war that would consume centuries and countless lives. The Taifa kings, desperate and divided, made a fateful decision. They sent messengers across the strait to North Africa, to the lands of the Maghreb, begging for help from their Muslim brethren. What they summoned would save them from Christian conquest, but would also devour their independence. The call was answered by the Almoravids, a confederation of Berber tribes from the Sahara Desert, warriors hardened by the unforgiving climate of the world's harshest wilderness. These were not refined courtiers, but men who forged an empire through religious fervor and discipline, followers of a strict interpretation of Islam that viewed the luxurious lifestyle of Andalusian courts with contempt. Their leader, Yusuf ibn Tashfin, was already in his 70s when he received the plea from Al-Andalus, but age had not dimmed his ambition or piety. In 1086, he crossed into Spain with an army of desert warriors, camel cavalry, and African soldiers unlike anything the peninsula had ever seen. At the Battle of Sagrajas near Badajoz, Yusuf's forces met the army of Alfonso VI of Castile. The battle was a massacre. The Almoravids' tactics, weapons, and determination shattered the Castilian army. Alfonso barely escaped with his life. The Taifa kings had halted Christian expansion, but Yusuf ibn Tashfin looked upon the palaces and gardens of Al-Andalus with disgust. He saw Muslims who drank wine, listened to music, and paid tribute to Christian kings. Within a few years, Yusuf returned not as a savior, but as a conqueror. One by one, he deposed the Taifa kings, annexed their territories, and incorporated Al-Andalus into the Almoravid Empire. For a time, the Almoravids brought stability and strength to Muslim Spain, halting Christian advances and reclaiming territory. But empires built on conquest and religious rigor often carry the seeds of their own destruction. The Almoravids grew soft in luxury. Their authority weakened. And from the Atlas Mountains, a new force arose, more zealous, more uncompromising, more dangerous than anything before. Deep in the high Atlas Mountains of Morocco, among the Masmuda Berber tribes, a religious teacher named Ibn Tumart began preaching a revolutionary doctrine. He had studied in the East and returned proclaiming himself the Mahdi, the Redeemer of Islam. He denounced the Almoravids as corrupt and called for a return to absolute monotheism, the unity of God. His followers became known as the Almohads. After his death in 1130, his successor Abd al-Mu'min transformed the movement into an empire. A common-born man of immense ability, he conquered city after city, defeating Almoravid armies and capturing Marrakesh in 1147 after a brutal siege. The Almohad conquest was not only military but ideological. Everywhere they went, they imposed strict religious law. Churches and synagogues tolerated under previous rulers were destroyed or converted. The relatively cosmopolitan culture of Al-Andalus gave way to rigid orthodoxy. The great philosopher Maimonides fled Córdoba during this period. Yet the Almohads were also patrons of learning and architecture. They built the Kutubiyya Mosque, the Hassan Tower, and the Giralda of Seville. They supported philosophers like Averroes, whose works influenced Europe for centuries. At their height, the Almohads ruled from Portugal to Tunisia, commanding vast wealth and power. By 1157, Abd al-Mu'min had fully conquered Al-Andalus, replacing Almoravid rule with his own. Once again, Muslims in Spain were ruled from Marrakesh, this time under an even stricter ideology. The Almohads saw the Reconquista not as mere border conflict but as an existential holy war. Meanwhile, the Christian kingdoms of northern Iberia evolved through conflict and ambition. Castile, Aragon, Navarre, and Portugal emerged as distinct powers. United by faith but divided by rivalry, they fought Muslims and each other alike. Kings married, betrayed, and warred for territory as much as for religion. Yet beneath the politics ran a current of destiny, the belief that they were reclaiming the lands of their Visigothic ancestors. The Catholic Church gave divine sanction to this struggle. Bishops blessed armies, monasteries financed wars, military orders like the Templars and the Order of Santiago arose to defend the faith. Every fortress captured was framed as a holy restoration, not conquest. In 1158, a child named Alfonso inherited the throne of Castile. Civil war erupted among nobles, and the young king was shuttled from castle to castle, surviving years of chaos. When he came of age, Alfonso VIII proved brilliant, ambitious, and determined. He reigned for over 50 years, married Eleanor of England, founded Castile's first university, and expanded his realm through war and diplomacy. In 1177, he captured Cuenca after a long siege, solidifying control over central Spain. But even as he advanced, the Almohads under Caliph Abu Yaqub Yusuf strengthened their power in Seville and prepared for war. In the summer of 1195, Alfonso VIII gathered his knights and banners to confront the advancing Almohad army near the fortress of Alarcos. The Caliph Abu Yusuf Yaqub al-Mansur, known as the Victorious, had brought a massive force from North Africa, determined to crush Castile once and for all. The Christians were outnumbered, but Alfonso believed faith and courage would prevail. The two armies met under the blazing Castilian sun. The Christian heavy cavalry, shining in steel and bearing the cross on their shields, charged first. They smashed through the first Muslim ranks, scattering infantry and banners. For a brief moment, it seemed the victory of Christendom was certain. Then the desert warriors counterattacked. Al-Mansur had held back his elite troops, waiting for the moment when the Christian charge lost momentum. From both sides his cavalry swept in, encircling the Castilian knights. Showers of arrows darkened the sky. Horses fell, men were cut off from their commanders, and chaos spread through the Christian ranks. Alfonso fought in the center, surrounded by loyal guards who died one after another to protect him. His horse was slain beneath him, his banner fell. Around him, the battlefield dissolved into smoke, dust, and blood. When night came, the ground was covered with the dead. The flower of Castile lay broken in the dust, its nobility slaughtered or captured. The Almohads celebrated their triumph with chants of victory. Alfonso barely escaped, carried away by his surviving bodyguards. The fortress of Alarcos was soon overrun and destroyed. Christian prisoners were chained and marched south to the slave markets of Seville and Marrakesh. The defeat sent shockwaves through all of Europe. In Castile, grief turned to despair. Alfonso withdrew into solitude, tormented by guilt and the loss of so many faithful men. The Almohads raided deep into Christian lands, burning fields and villages. Neighboring Christian rulers encroached upon Castile's borders, sensing weakness.